Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
We have calling in from Canada, Tyler. How are you, Tyler? Welcome to the show. You're on with David and Matt.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for taking my call here. Hey, I recently stumbled across your YouTube. Oh, yeah, sorry. I recently came across your content online here, and give a lot of credit to you for what you've accomplished and blah blah blah. But I just watched one of your latest videos, and I kind of was like a really big question mark to me because I kind of see from all sides. But you were very blatant about blaming every single COVID death on, last President Trump, and just from a kind of a Canadian standpoint. Very much so. And I guess my first question: have you always been like a Democrat? Would you say?
No, I used to be a Rush Limbaugh ditto head, but I'm not. So first of all, the question of whether or not I put the blame for every COVID death in the United States at Trump's feet, no, not in the sense that he's directly responsible for everyone who died of it. But he was president, and he poo-pooed the virus. He poo-pooed social distancing. He poo-pooed masks over and over again. And that means that he is was derelict in his duty to follow health guidelines and protect the citizens of the United States. And so while he's not the only individual, it's not like he ran around and killed 450,000 plus people. The buck stops here when you're president. And so the fact that this wasn't handled better is absolutely his fault.
Well, I get that. I do. I mean, I think I'm pretty sure your quote was, essentially every single one of them should be blamed on him.
Yes, blamed, but not the only person to be blamed. But yes, because the buck stops here.
Okay.
Was listening charitably, right? And when you assume someone means always and forever and everyone, it's not necessarily the case. And I think especially when you're going to disagree with someone, you need to step back and listen and read them a little more charitably. It's hard in the heat of the moment, but certainly take the opportunity to do that and you'll have better conversations.
Anyway, please keep going, Tyler.
I see so much, one-sided everything, especially where you get your news sources from, like in general from people. It can be so one-sided. I mean,
it doesn't matter where I get it doesn't matter where I got my news sources from multiple sources. I watched from Trump's own lips him downplay the virus repeatedly, saying it was all going to go away last April. It's going to go away when it warmed up. Maybe we can inject sunlight. Trump was the stupidest, most irresponsible president in the history of the United States from a standpoint of this sort of thing. I don't have to go to a news source. I would listen to him say it and watched his tweets while I stayed locked up in my house. The buck stops with the president. And if the president does not implement policies to keep the citizens safe, then yes, the deaths hang on his head.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be fair to say, though, there was, especially at the beginning of this, there was so many different questions from all over the map. You had doctors disagreeing with each other. It was kind of a mess. And I think...
it wasn't a mess.
The timeline of everything that he's done.
No, it wasn't a mess. We knew what was going on. We advocated for masks and social distancing. We advocated for staying home if you were able to stay home. And while we were doing that, the president was having political rallies, inviting people to mass super spreader events with no mask while suggesting that there was no need to do this. He was not in agreement with the medical experts at the time. And because of that, the situation is worse. He's the one that's responsible for not making it better.
How many would you blame on him, Tyler?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
pick a number.
Especially when you have each state kind of doing their own thing as well. I mean, the nursing home fiascos, how they're throwing people in the nursing homes, and I mean, I get, he's far from perfect, but I guess just generally, I think he was to a certain extent following CDC guidelines.
No, he was not. He absolutely was not following CDC guidelines. He absolutely was not following CD guidelines. I don't know where you're getting your news.
I disagree with you there, 'cause
I don't know where.
I was checking
Tyler?
the CDC website very constantly, and they weren't saying this is how this should be. Like at the beginning, I'm not like the different time frames here, but
Tyler, have you heard his private? Tyler, have you heard his private conversations with Bob Woodford, where while he was privately acknowledging that this is way worse than the flu, he was publicly shrugging it off as if it was just the flu? Have you heard that?
There was a lot of things that weren't right in there.
Have you heard? Have you heard, Tyler, President Trump telling Bob Woodward that this was worse than the flu during the same time period that he was publicly telling American citizens that this was not worse than a flu and would go away in April? He lied,
Yeah,
Tyler. He publicly fucking lied. Why are you calling in to defend him?
No, I'm not. No, listen. Like I was saying, the initial reason why I wanted to call you is because that one video, like I said, that I found, I think it was like from a week ago, maybe a couple weeks ago. It sounded like everything should be blamed on him, 100%.
Oh my God!
That's sort of just what I wanted to talk about.
Really, that's what you said. You really thought that I was saying?
Your perspective from that.
Okay, so why are you still making excuses for someone who you know and you claim that you heard them lying to the American people? Who gets the blame?
I'm just trying to say that
you are. Who gets the blame then?
No,
and how much blame does Trump have? How much blame does Trump have for lying to Americans?
How much is he accepted?
I do believe that the CDC, he was following those guidelines at the
Tyler, if you don't answer my question, I'm going to hang up and ban you. How much blame should Trump have for lying to Americans about COVID?
A substantial amount, yeah.
A substantial amount. Do you think that when I said Trump bears responsibility for the 450,000 dead, that it's fair to say that I was saying he bears a substantial amount of blame and that I wasn't saying he's the only person to blame? Do you think that's a fair assessment?
Now that I've talked to you about it, yeah. I mean, from watching that video.
Why wasn't it clear before you talked to me about it? What was the roadblock that was preventing you from understanding that?
Well, a lot of this is one-sided, just sheer hatred to the guy. And, from having a different perspective from it, not being there.
So let's assume, no, it's not about a different perspective. If I hate Trump, do you think that I have good reason to hate Trump?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you hate Trump?
But I understand why people voted for him.
Do you hate Trump?
I think it's more complicated than that.
Okay, some people I don't need to hear any more then.
I think
enjoy your complicated stuff, where the most dishonest, least intelligent, least diplomatic, least presidential president in the history lied to Americans and resulted in their deaths. And now you want to call in to be like, really? Do you really want to blame him?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think
you did though.
The administration was following CDC guidelines. That's what I was.
No, they fucking weren't.
I don't think it's right to say.
No, they fucking weren't, Tyler. He lied to Americans. Is it CDC guidelines to lie to Americans about the severity of the pandemic? Is that within CDC guidelines?
No, but there
no.
weren't.
So goodbye. Stop saying he was following. Tyler, how can you possibly suggest that the President of the United States was simultaneously lying to Americans and following CDC guidelines? Please reconcile that for us.
I think when you're leader, there needs to be some positive words coming out of you. Whether that's direct.
Can you argue honestly?
I'm not.
Can you argue honestly and address the question that you're asked, or are you going to what about for the rest of this call?
I'm not going to what about.
You have been what about. You just literally did what about. I asked you.
I'm trying to go back to the.
I asked you, Tyler, to reconcile your claim that you understand the president was lying to Americans, and you claim that he was following CDC guidelines, but CDC guidelines don't include lying to Americans. I asked you to recognize that, and your response was to say, well, when you're in control, I think there's a blah, blah, blah. That's whataboutism. Reconcile the conflicting points you made, or go away.
Direct, like, okay, what direct lies?
Okay, I'm not going to actually, Tyler, I'm not going to ask you again. I'm going to hang up on your ass. You can go back and rewatch the show, and then you can see that I've asked you the same question now, and that you didn't pay attention to it enough to even answer it after you whatabouted. So go back and rewind, and you shut up. Shut up. I asked you if, laugh it up. Go ahead, laugh up. Laugh some more.
No.
I asked you, the president lied. You acknowledge the president lied, and you tried to claim that he followed the CDC guidelines, and you acknowledge that the CDC guidelines did not encourage anyone to lie. So reconcile your belief that the president followed CDC guidelines and lied.
No, and I'm trying to, and it's not going to be an answer you're going to like, because I'm saying I
Bye.
So let me point out that a House committee just found out that the president was influencing the CDC. Not something we didn't know until now, but now the House has investigated it and found that it's happening, right? I mean, the president was in charge of the CDC to some extent, and I can't believe he didn't run it farther into the ground than he did, honestly.
Yeah. It's really strange. First of all, you're Canadian. I don't care what you think about my president. Go away. You don't vote. This isn't your country. But if you're going to call in and say that you think Trump was, hey, man, people just hate on Trump. Yes, there are reasons we hate on Trump, because he is an awful, awful human being. He's stupid. He is ignorant. He is egotistical. He incited a fucking riot and is being impeached for it today. People in the Capitol were hiding from other people who infiltrated the Capitol with weapons, seeking to kill Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence, among other things, in the middle of a pandemic where the president of the United States repeatedly held super spreader events, downplayed the severity of the virus. None of that was within CDC guidelines. Fuck you for trying to pretend that he was following CDC guidelines, because the CDC would not have approved a single Trump rally. Not one. They're not social distancing. They're not masks. It's absolutely disgusting what people are trying. Sorry, David, I didn't want you to have to deal with that. That way I get to take all the heat for saying shitty things about Trump. But
I've been listening to you have these conversations for years, and it's fun to be a part of them. So
hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.